What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Ravens Rundown. I am your host, Joey Petersen. And on this Sunday morning, I thought it'd be fun to kind of wrap up the first week of NFL free agency and give out my grades to the Baltimore Ravens. It's been a up and down week, and when I mean up and down, I don't mean great and bad and happy and sad. I mean more like they were very inactive, and then they made a little bit of a move, and then inactive, and then made a little bit of a move, and then of course. They've ended the week, as most of us felt like they would, as pretty inactive. But what I want to do is just kind of recap everything that's happened, recap the players that they've lost, recap the players they've re-signed, the players they've added, and then kind of just give out my final grades. Might even do that before I even recap. But before we go anywhere, before we talk about anything else, make sure you guys subscribe. Join us right here on the channel. We bring you daily content on the Baltimore Ravens. Usually doesn't look like this. We're usually in studio doing this one at home for you guys on this Sunday morning. But regardless, never miss a moment of your favorite team by hitting that sub button. So I think I'm just going to go start off and give them a grade. And I'm going to go B. Maybe B+. Kind of in the middle of a B and a B+. It would have been less. It probably would have been sitting at around a B-. Maybe I'll go B+. That DeAndre Hopkins move really changed my attitude toward this team and what they've been doing in free agency, okay? Let's talk about the moves that they have done so far. They started off by re-signing Ronnie Stanley, doing exactly what I wanted and I think what this team needed to do from the very beginning of this offseason. I remember making my perfect offseason video about 2 days after the end of the 2024 season, 2 days after the heartbreak against Buffalo. And I said, you know what? This team needs to re-sign Ronnie Stanley. I think when you're looking to compete for Super Bowls and you're looking to make a jump from one year to the other, right? You need to have 2 more wins this past year, 3 more wins this past year, next year than you did this past year. You don't get those wins by letting your starting left tackle walk, okay? I know Ronnie Stanley has had injury concerns. This was the first full season he's played since I believe it was 2019. This is a risk, but I know $20 million sounds like a lot, but compared to what worse tackles are getting in this open free agency market and compared to what other teams are offering Ronnie Stanley, $20 million is a bargain, okay? It was known that the Patriots and Commanders both offered him 24 plus. Dan Moore Jr., the former left tackle from the Pittsburgh Steelers, I believe he's now going to Tennessee. He got like $24 million. Dan Moore Jr. let up 12 sacks last year. And you re-signed Ronnie Stanley, and you did it for only $20 million a year. Okay, you don't get better. You don't improve your team by losing your starting left tackle. Okay, I know going into this year, a lot of people were really worried about, this offensive line, which is fair. You didn't know what the right tackle situation was going to be. I think at the start of the year, if I remember correctly, it was Patrick McCarry. And then Andrew Voorhees got hurt at left guard. You didn't know what he was going to be like. Daniel Faalele, you didn't know what he was going to be like. You were filling 3 holes with 3 kind of unknowns. Patrick McCarry, the most known out of them. Andrew Voorhees gets hurt. You move Patrick McCarry to left guard. Daniel Faalele stays at right guard. And then Roger Rosengarten comes in at right tackle. And he had a phenomenal year. You lose Ronnie Stanley this year and go into 2025 not knowing about your left tackle. That gives you way more pause, in my opinion, than you did going into 2024. So, re-signing Ronnie Stanley, give that a big fat A+. Okay? But it's the totality of everything that I'm giving it a B+. Let's talk about Pat Ricard. He was the next move. Re-sign him. A lot cheaper than he was on the past contract. 25% cheaper. Fully guaranteed. 1-year deal. Love that move. Anybody want pancakes? You know what I'm saying? Pat Ricard, I think, was a very overshadowed figure in this team. I think when a lot of analysts, a lot of people, myself included, talked about this run offense and what Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, what those guys were able to do, Pat Ricard rarely got mentioned. And I think Pat Ricard had a lot to do with that. His run blocking ability. It's just very selfless to play that position. There's no Emmitt Smith without Darryl Johnson. Okay, those running back, fullback relationships. Darryl will tell you that. Emmitt will tell you that. I can promise you there's not that much Derrick Henry this past year without Pat Ricard. And so I thought it was a great deal. Thought it was great money. And I give that one a really solid grade as well. And then obviously the D-Hop signing. I've talked about it ad nauseum on this channel. I love it. I think that DeAndre Hopkins at that price, I think it's the most important part of this deal. Okay, you're not just getting him, you're not overpaying for him. You're paying DeAndre Hopkins $5 million a year, possibly getting up to $6 million. And at that point, if he makes the incentives to get up to $6 million, you're saying, okay, great, I would love to pay him that. Give him that extra $1 million. He deserves it. And if he doesn't, okay, it's a 1-year deal for $5 million. And he gives you a different look, a different wrinkle to this offense. He gives Lamar Jackson a different receiver than he's ever gotten. Lamar Jackson has never had a high-point jump ball wide receiver in his career. Lamar Jackson has never had a goal line fade threat wide receiver in his entire career. Darius Slayton. I talked about this on, I believe it was Wednesday. Darius Slayton got 3 years, $36 million. And DeAndre Hopkins had more catches, more yards, more touchdowns in 2024. And you just signed him for $5 million. He said in his opening press conference he wanted to come play with Lamar. When him and his wife sat down at the end of the year, they knew they weren't going to be a Chief next year. They said, okay, let's talk about our best options. Baltimore's at the top of that list. Okay? People want to come here. People want to play here. People want to play with Lamar. People want to catch passes from Lamar. And they'll take $5 million on 1 year to do it. My favorite move, by far. I just think you can't beat the price. If he goes out there and gets you $600, if he goes out there and gets you 600 yards, it's worth it. I'm not expecting him to go out there and get you 1,315 touchdowns. That's ridiculous. I think there might be some people out there saying that. I think those people might be crazy. That's not DeAndre Hopkins anymore. I don't need 2018 DeAndre Hopkins. 2018, you're not paying $5 million a year. You're paying that guy $30 million. No. I just need 600 yards. Need you to catch a lot of the balls that come your way. And I'd love 5, 6, 7 touchdowns. I don't need much more. Wouldn't love much less. And then the Ben Cleveland was an interesting re-signing yesterday. A guy who didn't start a single game and then got a DUI a couple weeks ago, and then you just re-sign him. That really, really shocked me. But hey, I mean, more offensive line depth you can never be upset about. I think that's what it came down to, is they looked at like, gosh, I know this is a crazy re-signing, just got arrested for DUI a few weeks ago. I think we all heard the rumors of what's going on in his home life. And I think they looked at it and they're like, you know what, we just need offensive line depth. And so Ben Cleveland, still a Baltimore Raven, color me surprised. And then the guys you lose. That's part of this as well. That's what brings this down to a B+. Because although I didn't like Brandon Stevens as a starter, I would have liked him as a depth piece. Not for the money he got from New York. And so for that reason, I'm glad they didn't re-sign him. But still, you're losing a guy who started all this last year. And although I didn't think he was very good, I didn't really want him on this team. Wouldn't have minded him as a depth piece. Patrick Ricard, your starting left guard. A guy who is the most versatile offensive lineman probably in the National Football League, can play all 5 positions. Sure, he held a ton, led the National Football League in holding penalties. But you lose that guy. Malik Harrison, Chris Board, 2 guys who gave you a ton of snaps at linebacker towards the end of the season when Trenton Simpson pretty much got benched. Those guys are gone as well, okay? And countless others. Josh Jones, he's gone. That's offensive line depth. Okay, and so these are all, depth pieces, some starters that you're not going to have on your team anymore. So that all factors into this. And then also the fact that they haven't extended Derrick Henry yet. They haven't re-signed our Darius Washington yet. Everything, all of that culminating gives this offseason a B+. I'm not necessarily super upset they've sat on their hands and haven't done a ton. I think this free agency class has left little to be desired, and they're kind of getting overpaid. That's my opinion. And so it's not necessarily the absence of moves that they've made. It just feels like they've let some people walk and they haven't really replaced it yet. I think we're going to be relying too much on the draft for the depth pieces. And if you draft again this year like you did last year, then I don't know how confident I feel in the depth on this roster. I think you got to re-sign Ardarius. You got to extend Derrick Henry. I would love if they restructured or extended Lamar Jackson. I would love if they extended Lamar Jackson over the next couple of weeks. There's some holes left to be filled. There's still a lot of really good players left. We talked about them this past Friday, I believe. But guys like Justin Simmons, guys like Azeez Ojulari, Julian Blackmon, Mekhi Becton, I really wish they would have gotten him. He unfortunately went to the Chargers. A lot of moves left to be made. I'll be here to cover it all. Make sure if you guys haven't already, like the video, hit that sub button if you love the Baltimore Ravens.